Shalom again, everybody. Rabbi Ariel here from the KosherTorah School, found online at KosherTorah.com. We are here witnessing now the dawn of war. And something very ominous is happening now, the likes of which is more than frightening. A century ago, when we saw the rise of World War II, there was a dark cloud that descended upon Europe. There was an evil spirit that possessed the German people. Nazism, as we know, is a political philosophy, National Socialism. You could actually read Adolf Hitler's book about what those philosophical ideas are and separate those ideas from any expression of Jew hatred. Because political philosophy and hatred of Jews or others are two different things. But needless to say, in Hitler's mind and the Nazi mentality, they were one and the same. That evil spirit, we thought, was dissipated with the end of World War II. Yeah, it descended upon people like a cloud. And then after the war, it just allegedly disappeared. But that spirit never disappears. It is back now in full fury. And the new, in quote, chosen of the recipients of this dark spirit now are all over the world. World Islam has been hijacked and possessed by this dark spirit simply because of specific muftis from the days of World War II, who were close collaborators with Adolf Hitler and indeed inspired his final solution. The spirit of that evil mufti lived on in his disciples, who were, of course, Yasser Arafat, Saddam Hussein, amongst others. And it is those seeds that have blossomed now and have spread around the world. Islam has its own issues with Jews and Judaism, and that's for God to judge. I will stay out of that. But here we are today, and the issue between the secular Zionist state of Israel and the people embracing the identity of Palestinians is an issue which should have been resolved decades ago. But with the likes of absolute hatred, it cannot be done. The force of evil, because I don't know what else to call it, such absolute determination to the cause, the likes of which we see in certain extremist elements. Today, we speak of the, in quote, evils of Islamic extremism. And we look at groups like ISIS and Hamas and others, and we denounce all the evil, horrible things that they are doing without realizing history. 1,000 years ago, the religious extremists were the Christians who invaded Islamic territory in the days of the Crusades and perpetrated equal types of horrors. Go study your history. And the records of that are well known, and the memory of that are still etched in the minds of the Islamic world. One of the underlying animosities towards the modern state of Israel in the eyes of many in the Islamic world is that this is like Crusaders Part 2. But don't think that it began there. Again, we must go back in history. Go back to the days of the destruction of the first temple. And you had the Jewish extremist violent people who, like many people since, have believed, go for broke, all or nothing, God is with us, and we'll fight the world. One of those extremist religious communities were the Essenes. Read their war scroll of the war of the sons of light versus darkness. Well, guess what? They fought. They lost. They died. The Jewish extremists in the days of the Second Temple provoked a war with Rome. And Rome came to, of course, put an end to the uprising. The people barricaded themselves in Jerusalem, knowing full well that God was going to fight for them, which never happened. They were so convinced, the people of Israel, Jerusalem, this 2,000 years ago, they had enough food supplies. They were hoping to wait out the siege and negotiate peace. The extremists in the day used the citizens of Jerusalem as human shields, destroyed all of their resources to force a fight, which, of course, led to famine and death. It was that same dark spirit that resurrected itself 1,000 years later in the Crusades, and we see resurrected today again. I know, as a rabbi, as a Jew, people want to point a finger at me and hatred. I am the cause of this and that. Why? Because if I'm a Jew, then I must be associated with Israel and all this and that. Well, you want to know something? That's the spirit of hatred speaking. Because I, even to the point of getting many of my own peers angry at me, I try to speak a voice of rationality. Because my focus is now and always is going to be on God. And I don't care how and what way you interpret God. Malachi 1, verse 11, right? The rising of the sun to the going down thereof, great is God's name amongst the nations. And I am not going to ever turn against the righteous of any nation in any form. Righteous indignation is valid. What Hamas did against Israel is a terrible, terrible crime. We know this. Just the other day now, there was a bombing of a hospital in Gaza. And of course, Israel swears it was not them. And of course, Hamas swears that it was. Who's to be believed? Well, I most certainly am not the one who can decide that. Well, you're a Jew. You're therefore going to take Israel's side. Well, you know something? I don't want to take anybody's side. But I will tell you this. That type of operation is a style of operation of a false flag that the Nazis were well known to do. The Nazis provoked World War II with a false flag operation against Poland, claiming Poland was invading them when they invaded Poland. Is that what happened now? Was this provocation of the bombing of a hospital specifically to, solidify an anti-Israel sentiment throughout the Arab world? Well, that's what's happened. What's going to happen because of it? I don't know. God knows. I'm going to be honest in a way that many of my peers will not be. In 1948, the secular Zionist state of Israel was established. Many in the religious world have rejected the state to this very day, but others recognize that the hand of God, the fulfillment of the prophecy is in this, and if you will, go with the flow. And religion in Israel has had its ups and downs. And you've had good religious people and bad religious people. And Israel and religion has had a very interesting relationship. At one side, Israel, the secular state that is, allows religion to prosper. And then at the other side, it kicks religion in the rear end. There is a lot of external expressions of religion in the world. How much internal expression? Only God can judge that. But here we are. God has allowed disasters to befall us in the past. Holocausts, pogroms, destructions. The modern state of Israel was established as, well, let's just say on imbalanced legs. Is it meant to stand? Only God can decide that. Is it meant to fall? Only God will decide that. Will it take a big hit? Only God will decide that. But I will tell you this, and this you need to understand. God alone is behind everything that's happening right now. There are higher forces involved. We call them by the biblical word, Irin Kadosh, which means the watchers. Those of you who are my peers who watch me from like ancient aliens and the like, yeah, those watchers, the ancient aliens, they're the present aliens. Those are that invisible higher hand. No, I don't think they're working through an invisible cabal of Jews. I know everybody wants to blame the Jews for everything. Do you really think the Jews are that smart? And all the I don't mean to be offensive to my own people. Yeah, we have some brilliant minds among us, but really, I mean, that would surprise me. But what can I say? There are forces that are moving pieces like on a chessboard. We see an alignment of now Russia, Iran, Turkey. This so much sounds like the fulfillment of the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel of the war of Gog and Magog. Is it going to be? Only time will tell. But a point that I want to make very clear for those who have studied the book of Daniel, for those who've even read my commentary on Daniel, the book is called Vision End of Days. I'll put a link to it here. You'll see. Even if this war is to come, please do not expect a Messiah to come and quote, save us from it. There are a lot of people who want to believe that if the nukes are going to fly, that the, in quote, aliens are going to come and stop them and materialize themselves as our overlords. Well, I guess that's a great plot for a science fiction novel, but I don't think that's going to become political fact. And I say this because I really want to dissuade you from thinking that. We're in hard times because, if you will, the judgment of God is upon us. When I asked in my prayers of Rosh Hashanah if we're going to have a nuclear war this year, I felt convinced at that time that no, we're not. Right now, I don't want to question the revelations of heaven, but I am beginning to question my own interpretations of that. At this point, I certainly hope and pray that there won't be, but I see, in the words of Creedence Clearwater Revival, I see a bad moon horizon. I see trouble on the way. And I've told people, many other people, prepare, get ready. Violence is already breaking out on the streets around the world. Violence against Jews have already started in places like New York City. We've long said, oh, it won't happen here in America. But then you had others who said, well, yes, it can, and yes, it will. And well, maybe that's starting to happen right now. A warning to Jews around the world. Guys, there's this dark cloud, and it is blinding the eyes, clouding the hearts of people. Anti-Semitism, I can't use that word anti-Semitism. People in the Arab community object to it. Why? They're Semites too. Jew hatred, that's the correct term. Jew hatred is growing as a cloud, and God is watching to see who is going to turn against his people and who will turn towards his people. Now remember, and hear me, please, all right? Just because someone is born a Jew does not make them religious or, if you will, faithful to God or faithful to the Torah. The biggest problem that has ever faced the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, has always been those born into the nation, but have remained radically unfaithful to it. Please do not look to people like Henry Kissinger or George Soros and call them Jews. Please, what is Jewish about these people? Nothing. Right? Just because their ancestry was Jewish does not make them Jewish. So don't point to them and blame those who are trying to be faithful to the Lord, Bible-believing, God-fearing Jewish people. You have other people, especially in the West, who embrace secular culture and all types of immoralities and horrible behaviors. We see them. They're glaring all over. They're causing Jew hatred. We stand opposed to them. But we've also warned them that they are responsible for the spiritual seeds of resentment placed in the hearts of many. I remember years ago when I lived in Jerusalem for my religious studies, I had a discussion with an English-speaking sheikh who lived in the old city, Iratika. And I asked him, really, what were your major objections of dealing with Israelis? And he got very emotional. And he said, because our Arab boys are going to visit your Jewish prostitutes on the streets of Tel Aviv, and you're corrupting our children. Oh my gosh. Now, I hear people are going to get all angry at me. What about the Arab prostitutes? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm just telling you what I was told. That secular type of influence runs deep resentment in the hearts of people who are religious. And just like you will see people who point the finger, all the Arabs or all the Christians and all the Jews. Okay, enough of this all stuff. We're all individuals. We stand individually before God. We need to understand that in our own minds and hearts. The bad cloud of darkness is upon us. And if we open our hearts to accept it, it will blind our eyes. We will become part of that mob mentality, which will be pointing the finger at all of them, whoever your them is. God will judge you if that is the case. Beware of that evil spirit. God allows it to come because that is what we call the spirit of vengeance. And as the Zohar from the Kabbalistic tradition speaks, when the spirit of destruction is unleashed, it is given authority over everyone, righteous and wicked alike. So the righteous need to understand to get the blankety blank out of the way. I've been warning you people, get out of the centers of conflict, get out of your cities, come to more rural, conservative, Bible-believing areas where people are more receptive. Is that dark spirit here? Oh, yeah. It's plenty. It's around everywhere. But not everywhere. It's not in the hearts of those people who will turn to God. And I cannot implore to you enough, please, save your souls, save yourselves. We're in a spiritual war. We're in a war with much greater forces operating against us now. And they influence us through the power of thought, a psychic influence, almost, if you will, psychic deception. This is how the watchers, this is how God punishes through the watchers. Daniel 4:14, read it for yourselves. We're at a crossroads now, guys. It's only a matter of time before, and as they say, the proverbial poop hits the fan. Use this time that you have wisely. Get yourselves ready. Hope for the best. Be prepared for the worst. What's the future of the state of Israel? That's in God's hands. Everything now is in God's hands. But I will warn you what the words of Ezekiel say. God is in charge of this war, not so much to punish the nations or to punish Israel or anything of the kind, but for one reason. So as to reintroduce himself into human history so that the world will know God is real, God exists, God is in power. We have a prayer that we recite in our Jewish traditions. It's called the Kaddish, which means to sanctify God's name. It's based upon one of these verses in Ezekiel. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemerabah. God's name is going to be made great. The nations of the world, Israel included, we're all going to see a powerful hand. Is it going to be materialized through the unleashing of classified technologies and weapons, the likes of which you can't even imagine? Yeah. Remember back in the 90s when Vladimir Zhirinovsky was alive and he spoke with 60 Minutes and made a reference. The story was like this. He was threatening to take back Alaska for the sake of the Soviet Union at the time. And the interviewer asked, aren't you afraid of American nukes? He said, we have Lipton technology. We're not afraid of the nukes. They're obsolete tech. Lipton technology is long old. I talked to you about this before. When Iran talks about wanting to create an earthquake, and then an earthquake hits Iran, I don't know how much of that might come from orbiting technologies and the likes of which is classified. And yeah, I better keep my big mouth shut so as not to get myself in trouble. But if we have a full-scale World War III, We're going to unleash all kinds of terrible technologies. Pray, because that's what we have now to do. Prepare, because that's now what we have now to do. Get yourselves ready. Get yourselves out of this normalcy bias to think it's all going to blow away in a couple of days. Get ready, because the shifting of the tides is upon us. Like it says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time and a purpose for all things under heaven. Well, we're now at that time for war. The good news is that following that comes the time of peace. How long this war will go, I don't know. How devastating it will be, I don't know. Let's hope and pray for the best one way or another. Please take this message seriously. Watch the dark cloud descend. Watch it blind the eye, and make sure that you do not succumb. May God bless us all. Thank you all for listening. God's blessings. All the YouTube stuff, click if you like the button, subscribe to the channel, all that. I don't know how much longer all that is going to be worth stuff, but whatever. God's blessings. Be well. Shalom.